He stood at the edge of the road, staring at the old house that once held his entire world, his chest tight, his breath uneven, because 9 years ago he had left this place broken, humiliated, and convinced that the woman he loved had betrayed him, and now he was back, richer than he had ever imagined, stronger than anyone who once mocked him, but nothing could prepare him for the truth waiting behind that door. Back then, he was a quiet man, the kind who listened more than he spoke, the kind who worked long hours without complaint, believing that love and loyalty were enough to build a life, but he had underestimated the cruelty of powerful people, especially one man who controlled everything around them, a man with influence, wealth, and a reputation no one dared question, a man who smiled in public but destroyed lives in silence. That man had wanted her, and when she refused him, he decided to ruin the only person standing in his way, and that person was him. It started slowly, whispers at work, accusations that made no sense, money missing that he had never touched, colleagues turning their backs, friends avoiding his eyes, and then came the final blow, a staged moment, carefully planned, perfectly executed, where he was made to look like a traitor, like a thief, like a man who had not only betrayed his employer but also his own home. He remembered that night clearly, the rain pouring down, the cold cutting through his skin, as he stood outside his own house, shouting her name, begging her to listen, but the door never opened, and through the window he saw her, standing still, tears in her eyes, but not moving, not coming to him, and in that moment, silence felt louder than any accusation. He left with nothing, no money, no dignity, no explanation, only a burning pain in his chest and a belief that everything he had trusted was a lie. The years that followed were not kind. He slept in places no one should sleep, worked jobs no one should endure, and faced humiliation after humiliation, but he never broke completely. Something inside him refused to die, a quiet hope that maybe one day he would understand why it all happened, maybe one day the truth would reveal itself. Slowly, painfully, he began to rise. He learned, he adapted, he took risks, and the same calm silence that once made people overlook him became his greatest strength. He observed, he calculated, and when opportunities came, he was ready, and over time, he built something no one could take from him. A business, then another, then more, until the man who once had nothing became someone powerful in his own right, someone respected, someone feared, someone no longer invisible. But wealth did not erase the past, it only made the questions louder, and every night, when the world grew quiet, he thought about her, about that moment, about the look in her eyes, and the doubt slowly grew, because something about that night never felt right, something about her silence felt wrong, and after 9 long years, he could no longer ignore it. So he came back, not for revenge, not for pride, but for the truth. The house looked smaller now, older, as if time had weighed heavily on it, just like it had on him, and when he finally walked to the door and knocked, his heart pounded harder than it ever had in all his years of struggle, because this moment held everything he had been searching for. The door opened slowly, and there she was, the same eyes, the same presence, but changed, tired, as if life had not been kind to her either, and for a moment, neither of them spoke, because words felt too small for what stood between them. He expected anger, explanations, maybe even indifference, but what he saw instead was something deeper, something heavier, regret mixed with relief, as if she had been waiting for this moment just as long as he had. He finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying years of pain, asking the one question that had haunted him, why? She looked at him, tears forming again, but this time she did not stay silent. She stepped aside and told him to come in, because the truth could not be told at the door. Inside, everything felt familiar yet distant, like a memory he was no longer part of, and then he noticed something that made his breath stop, a small drawing on the wall, a child's drawing, simple, colorful, and in the corner, a name written in uneven letters, a name he had never seen before, but something about it felt strangely connected to him. He turned to her, confusion growing, and that was when she told him to sit, because what he was about to hear would change everything he believed for the past 9 years. Her voice trembled at first, but then it steadied, and she began to tell the story he was never allowed to hear, about that powerful man, about his obsession, about the threats that followed when she refused him, threats not just against her but against him, about the night everything was staged, how she was forced to stay silent, how she was warned that if she tried to defend him, he would disappear in ways no one would ever question, how she made a choice that destroyed her own heart just to keep him alive. He listened, his mind struggling to process every word, because everything he had believed was being rewritten in front of him. Every memory, every assumption, every piece of pain suddenly had a different meaning. And then she told him the truth he never expected, the truth that had been hidden for 9 years, the truth about the child. His hands trembled as she spoke, explaining that she was pregnant when he left, that she had no way to reach him, no way to tell him, and that the same man who ruined him made sure she stayed isolated, controlled, watched, until he eventually lost interest and moved on, leaving behind a life already shattered. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as the realization hit him, that all those years, while he was fighting to survive, a part of him had been growing up without him, living, breathing, existing just a few miles away from where his life was destroyed. He stood up slowly, unable to sit still, his emotions colliding, anger, regret, disbelief, and something else, something fragile, something he had not felt in years, hope. She walked to another room and called a name, the same name from the drawing, and moments later, a child appeared, small, curious, unaware of the storm that had just unfolded, and when their eyes met, time seemed to stop, because in that moment, he saw it, something unmistakable, something undeniable, a reflection of himself in a life he never knew existed. The child looked at him with innocent curiosity, asking who he was, and for the first time in years, he did not have an answer ready, because the truth was too big, too overwhelming, too late, and yet not too late at all. He knelt down slowly, his voice softer than it had ever been, introducing himself not as a stranger, but as someone who had been lost and had finally found his way back. Tears fell freely now, not just from pain, but from the weight of everything that had been taken and everything that had been returned in a single moment. But the story did not end there, because the man who caused all of this still existed, still powerful, still untouchable, or at least that is what everyone believed. What he did not know was that the quiet man he once destroyed had become someone else entirely, someone who understood power, who knew how to play the same game, someone who had waited, patiently, silently, building not just wealth but influence, connections, leverage. And this time, he did not act out of anger, he acted with precision, gathering evidence, exposing secrets, unraveling the carefully constructed image that had protected that man for years, and when the truth finally came out, it did not come quietly, it came all at once, undeniable, unstoppable, bringing down a man who once believed himself above consequences. Justice did not scream, it did not rush, it arrived calmly, firmly, exactly when it was ready. And as everything settled, as the past finally loosened its grip, he stood once again at the edge of that road, but this time, he was not alone. This time, he had something real, something that no amount of wealth could replace, a chance to rebuild, to heal, to be present, to turn years of pain into something meaningful. He had lost 9 years, but he had found the truth, and sometimes, the truth, no matter how late, is enough to change everything.